spent a lot of my time as a sailor. I had a sailing boat, and so a lot of my poetry has arisen out of being at sea. And that has been very much something which has set off lots of stuff that I've done.
So did you learn to sail when you were a boy? Or?
No, I didn't.
As an adult?
In fact, so when I was in my early 20s, there was a friend of mine at university who belonged to the University Sailing Club, and he said, come and sail these boats on the Flash, which is outside Manchester. So we went along, and it was an absolutely foul day, blowing like hell and wet and everything. Anyway, we got this boat out. It was a racing dinghy. I've forgotten what they're called now. We got on this thing. Wind went like that. We got about 5 yards offshore and capsized. And we were in the water. So then, the boat was just blown away. You see. So we were then walked all the way around the Flash, which was probably about a couple of miles, I should think, and to pick up the boat on the other side. And he says, right, he said, it'll be easy this time, he said, because we're not getting the wind pushing us that way down. So he got in the boat, and I was standing in the water holding it up to about here in the water. He said, right, jump! So I jumped and missed. Went into the water up to here. He sailed off, and I then had to walk 2 miles around the Flash. So that was my introduction to sailing.
Well, yeah, you put me off.
But then later, I went to a friend of mine, a number of us, we went to Windermere, and we sailed Windermere pond designs that we hired for the weekend, camped around there. And that's when I learned to sail there. But I really learned to sail properly when I came here, because Mike Green and John Howard, well, it was John Howard really, and Bruce, organised a flotilla on the Broads. So there would be about 6 boats with people from here and from Latimer School, which is where John taught. And we'd go for a week on the Broads. And we had boats with no engines. And what Mike Green called the Wooden Bride, which is a long quant pole which is stuck in the water to put in the wind and push the boat along there. They were fantastic weeks, you know, and you really learn to sail because you're difficult waters, they're narrow, and you've got tide, a bit of tide, and you really have got to learn to sail the boat to do it properly there. And we did that for some years. And John used to work out a schedule, which meant that we could get to nearly everywhere on the Broad in a week. Not quite, but nearly everywhere. But it sometimes meant getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning. Going on till about 8 o'clock at night. And I remember once sitting in a pub in Potter High on the Friday night when we got the boats in and finished, and a big wicker chair, almost like a basket chair. I was sitting in this and thinking, I'm now going to go to sleep. The other thing was, of course, that those days everything was a bit primitive. When you got back home, you had a bath. You practically had to dig the water. It was so dirty from the wind. But after that, Mike Green and I bought a boat. We bought one boat which we only sailed it once, and it was in the yard, and it was burnt down in the yellow fire. That it was not a very good boat. We got all our money back and a bit more, which enabled us to buy a rather good boat. It was only tiny, it was only a 20-foot boat. And my goodness, I got that boat to some terrific place. We crossed the North Sea in it, and that was great. And then that story went on, and I bought a quite larger boat. And I finished up with a boat we called Bugle Call. Well, we didn't call it Bugle Call. That was the name it had, and I bought it. It was a second-hand boat. And I had that for 20 years. It broke my heart when I got to sell it in the end, because arthritis was beginning to tell. So now I have a narrow boat, and it got sailboats at 3 miles an hour. Just